When I was a kid, we would sometimes watch those old Disney nature documentaries from the 1950s. They were quaint and innocent, good vibes. This film, in many ways, feels similar to those old documentaries. It's got some cool underwater photography and lots of quaint and innocent vibes. But unlike Disney's Ariel, the mermaids in this one don't have shell bras. Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob, and today I'm taking a look at Mermaids of Tiburon from 1962. The film has a kind of complicated release history. It was originally released mostly on army bases, but then the director, John Lamb, added some extra footage of topless mermaids, and it was released again, I believe, in 1965. You might be surprised to hear this, but that's the version that I have. So let's check them out. Let's check the movie out. We open on the sea, and then under the sea, a voice tells us that if we believe in them, there will always be mermaids. If mermaids stop existing when people stop believing, they share a lot in common with God.
He's dead.
A male narrator tells us that near the Mexican island Tiburon, there had been sightings of porpoise-type mammals. And he tells us that he went there and had an extraordinary adventure. Amongst the sea creatures shown during the introduction is a rather nice-looking lady who seems to have misplaced her clothes. Naturally, that's nothing you can see here on YouTube.
Man, I just work here.
But of course, we don't have to stay here. Support the channel on Patreon and get access to uncensored, spicy versions of my reviews. Link is in the description. We get a title card telling us this is the nude version, and then we meet our marine biologist being hired to go to Tiburon to find some giant pearls. That'll be our main character, Dr. Sam Jameson. On the poster, he's credited as George Rowe, which is a fitting last name for a marine picture. His real last name was, and this is true, George Robotham, which is what the cool kids call RoboCop.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Anyway, our biologist gets to Mexico, but the man he was supposed to meet is missing. Not being able to do anything about that, he charters a boat to go to Tiburon. In another part of the movie, some other characters are preparing for a trip. This is Milo, played by Timothy Carey. You might recognize him from Paths of Glory, which is one of my all-time favorite war films. I'm not entirely sure what an actor of his caliber is doing in a film like this. But I'm not judging. We all gotta pay bills. Our marine biologist makes it to the island, and Milo and his Mexican guide are shortly behind. Milo suspiciously dumps a heavy trunk off the side of the boat. Curiouser and curiouser with this guy. He then tells his guide that there are large pearls near the island. I wonder how he knew that. Back with our biologist, he spots an interesting-looking tail in the water, and then he spots some interesting tail out of the water. That lovely creature, by the way, is played by Dianne Webber. She was a nudist and popular pinup model in the 50s and 60s. She was also a Playboy playmate, and the photographer who shot one of her Playboy spreads was none other than Russ Meyer. So our biologist decides to go scuba diving to take a better look. And he finds some mermaids down there. Weirdly, most of them don't have mermaid tails, but don't worry, I doubt you'll be looking at their feet. Unless you're one of those. In which case, have fun. Our guy chases the mermaids around for a while, and we are treated to lots of underwater buoyancy. Eventually, he tries to make friends with one of them by offering flowers. She accepts, and our guy follows as she leads him to an underwater cave, the mermaid home. And in this home are some rather large clams. I'm not a biologist, so I'm not sure what kind of clams they are, but it was the 60s, so probably bearded. What I do know is that they produce the rather large pearls. Maybe the guy will help these mermaids make necklaces. Maybe. In my experience, it's not as much fun as you would think to do that underwater. Anyway, Milo shows up and immediately attacks with dynamite. He thinks the guy is here to get those pearls. Well, now that everyone is in the same place, there's going to be some action. Dynamite, spear guns, sharks, all the marine-themed sources of violence you might expect. But that's enough out of me as far as plot goes. Let's talk some highlights. Well, there are the obvious highlights. Lots of mermaids swimming in the ocean buoyantly. But beyond those buoys, we've got some rather nice underwater photography. Cool animals, cool kelp forest, underwater caves. And I don't know about you, but the ocean scares me a little bit, and there's a pretty tense scene in the kelp forest with a shark. It's pretty cool. Admittedly, the shark doesn't exactly look real in some of the shots, but at other times I imagine they use stock footage, and it all fits together pretty well. I also like the marine equipment they used. This torpedo thing looks pretty fun. Again, the ocean kind of freaks me out, but I'd definitely give that thing a spin in Lake Michigan. And if that thing weren't cool enough, Milo and his partner used this cool thing. It's like an underwater canoe. That looks super fun. Finally, although the story is paper thin, I was kind of into it by the end. Milo was a pretty effective villain, and him versus the biologist was pretty fun. Of course, it's far from the best nature-themed adventure films I've seen, but even the best nature-themed adventure film I've seen doesn't have lots of naked mermaids in it, so there's that. But despite that, the movie is not perfect. Like a mermaid trading some flowers for some pearls, the film has some shortcomings. Well, like I said, the movie has a paper-thin plot, and if nice images of underwater buoyancy aren't enough to keep you interested, you might find this to be kind of boring. Maybe even very boring. I didn't. Your mileage may vary. I do wish the film had made some attempt to explain why most of the mermaids in this thing don't have mermaid tails, but instead look indistinguishable from Playboy models swimming. I mean, they could have suggested something, like only the queen mermaid grows a tail, or the tail is an age thing. I don't know. I would have accepted any explanation, but there was none. Maybe since a lot of the other mermaids were added to the film later, there was no good way to add an explanation. I don't know. Most of the movie is narrated. I bet they could have slipped in a line to explain things. Even if George Robotham couldn't or wouldn't record it, they could have just added another narrator. That would have worked. I'd have been happy with that. Anyway, the movie is what it is, and almost begrudgingly, I am a fan of it. If you like those brain-dead nudie cuties, you might like this one too. I mean, it's not a nudie cutie since it's not a comedy, it's more of a nudie adventure-y, and we don't have too many of those, especially not too many set in the ocean. They were probably an expensive risk. You wouldn't want to get to the box office and see your under-the-sea film flounder.